into the sky. Yeah. See the birds fly, see the birds keeps me holding on. And I don't know what to do. This life is taking me through my ups and downs. And I can't get off this ride, holding on so tight. I just close my eyes.
I had to keep from going under, like Stevie, I wonder. Thinking hard, running out of places to lay my head, got me drinking hard, born struggling. A fellow when she was bubbling. The fact that I can't get no job, don't do nothing but rub it in. I'm running out of time, and I'm sick of slanging nickels and dimes. Ducking the police daily is affecting my grind. Losing my mind behind the wrong woman that say she love me. Long as I'm dropping on the rent, everything is lovely. So many features and songs. Tell me why I ain't got no home. Penitentiary prone, cause I'm wrong with a pocket full of stones. Somebody tell me, will I make it to the cream of the crop? Fell for stress, so I be screaming a lot. Dog, at 20 years old, I used to know that I'd be rich at 25, not 24, and still no go. I try to struggle and strive. I keep my heat up under my seat when I creep, cause I just met Mr. Sweet, but now be under my feet. Man, it's a cold, cold world that we living in. Killers will take your life, and it ain't gotta be about no dividends. Forgive me for my sins, I'm just trying to make it, trying to keep my flip, just can't take it. Jesus, I'm trying
and
to survive.
I don't know what to do. This life is taking me through my ups and downs. And I can't get off this ride, holding on so tight. I just close my eyes.
Testing, 1 2 1 2, bitch. Man, what it do, man? No, what it do, baby? Man, you know me, man. I'm just coming through the door, man, with it. No knock warrants, man. Serving nothing but truth, and we're looking for falsehood. Wherever his bitch ass at, tell him he need to turn himself in right goddamn now. Cause the truth looking for him, man. We got another, man. Black Power in the Third World, by Stokely Carmichael. Uh Havanna, Cuba, August 1967. Yeah, man, we finna get into that shit, man. I'm talking about right now. Let me bring that. Let me do something for y'all, man. Yeah, this one here, man, this was a tough one, man. I had did this motherfucker yesterday, V-Note, this bitch. I fuck around and looked at the motherfucker. I ain't had no audio or nothing on that bitch. I said, hell no. Nigga, I done read a whole damn 30 minutes. That ain't record. Shit. Man. But we finna get into this, man. I got the audio together today, man. Black Power in the Third World by Stokely Carmichael. Written to Havana, Cuba in 1967 in August, man. Address to the Organization of Latin America Solidarity. And it reads, bring that closer to me. We greet you as comrades because it becomes increasingly clear to us each day that we share with you a common struggle. We have a common enemy. Our enemy is white, Western, imperialist society. Note that we use the term white Western society as opposed to white Western civilization. The West has never been civilized. It has no right to speak of itself as a civilization. Our struggle is to overthrow the system which feeds itself and expands itself through the economic and cultural exploitation of non-white, non-Western peoples, the third world. We share with you also a common vision of establishment of humanistic societies in the place of those now existing. We seek with you to change the power basis of the world, where mankind will share the resources of their nations instead of having to give them up to foreign plunderers, where civilizations can retain their cultural sovereignty instead of being forced to submit to foreign rulers who impose their own corrupt cultures on those civilizations they would dominate. Anglo society has been nearly successful in keeping all of us, the oppressed of the third world, separated and fragmented. They do this for their survival, because if we felt our unity, we would know our strength, especially here on this continent, where the Anglo is the minority. He has for hundreds of years succeeded in keeping all of us who are oppressed from realizing our common plight. But the call of Che Guevara for a continental struggle against a common enemy would seem to ameliorate this fragmentation among those who will resist Western imperialism. We speak with you, comrades, because we wish to make clear that we understand that our destinies are intertwined. Our world can only be the third world, our only struggle for the third world, our only vision of the third world. Until recently, most African Americans thought that the best way to alleviate their oppression was through attempts to integrate into the society. If we could enjoy public accommodations in the United States, motels, hotels, restaurants, etc., our condition would be alleviated. Many of us believe this attitude was characteristic of the civil rights movement and clearly points up the bourgeois character of that movement. Only the bourgeoisie are in position to be concerned about public accommodations. The African American masses, on the other hand, do not have any jobs, any houses, worthy of the name, decent, nor the money to enjoy restaurants, hotels, motels, etc. The civil rights movement did not actively involve the masses because it did not speak to the needs of the masses. Y'all all right out there? All right. Nonetheless, the civil rights movement was a beginning, and because its aims met resistance throughout the USA. Depths of racism heretofore unrecognized were laid bare. It had been thought that the aims of the civil rights movement would be easily realizable because the United States Constitution supported them. But thousands of African Americans were jailed, intimidated, beaten, and some murdered for agitating for those rights guaranteed by the Constitution, but only available to whites. Eventually, the United States Congress passed the Civil Rights Bill and a Voting Rights Bill, assuring us of those rights for which we had been agitating. By this time, however, more and more of us were realizing that our problems would not be solved by the enacting of these laws. In fact, the laws did not begin to speak to our problems. Our problems were an inherent part of the capitalist system and therefore could not be alleviated within that system. The African American masses had been outside the civil rights movement. For 4 years, they watched to see if any significant changes would come from the nonviolent demonstrations. It became clear to us that nothing would change. And in the summer of 1964, only a couple of weeks after the Civil Rights Bill was passed, the first of what is now over 100 rebellions occurred. The following year, the same year that the Voting Rights Bill was enacted, one of the largest rebellions occurred in Watts. These rebellions are increasingly with intensity and frequency each year until now, practically every major city has seen us rise to say, we will seize the day or be killed in an attempt. The civil rights movement could never attract and hold the young bloods who clearly understand the savagery of white United States and who are ready to meet this savagery with armed resistance. It is the young bloods who contain especially the hatred Che Guevara speaks of when he says hatred as the element of the struggle, relentless hatred of the enemy that impels us over and beyond the natural limitations of man and transforms us into an effective, violent, selected, and cold killing machine. The Black Power movement has been the catalyst for the bringing together of these young bloods. The real revolutionary proletariat ready to fight by any means necessary for the liberation of our people. In exposing the extent of the racism and exploitation which permeates all institutions in the United States, the Black Power movement has unique appeal to young Black students on campuses across the country. These students have been deluded by the fiction that exists in white North America, that if the Black man would educate himself and behave himself, he would be acceptable enough to leave the ranks of the oppressed and join the white society. This year, when provoked by savage white policemen, students on many campuses fought back, whereas before they had accepted these incidents without rebellion. As students are a part of these rebellions, they begin to acquire resistance consciousness. They begin to realize that white North America might let a very few of them escape one by one into the mainstream of her society, but as soon as Blacks move in concert around their Blackness, she will reply with a fury which reveals her true racist nature. We are moving to control our African American communities as you are moving to wrest control of your countries, of the entire Latin continent from the hands of foreign imperialist powers. Therefore, there is only one course open to us. We must change North America so that the economy and politics of the country will be in the hands of the people. Our particular concern is our people, African Americans. But it is clear that a community based on the community ownership of all property would not exist within the present capitalist framework. For the total transformation to take place, whites must see the struggle that we're engaged in as being their own struggle. At the present time, they do not. Even though the white worker is exploited, he sees his own best interests aligned with the power structure. Because of the racist nature of this country, we cannot work in white communities, but have asked those whites who work with us to go into their own communities to begin propagandizing and organizing. When the white workers realize their true condition, then there will exist the possibilities for alliances between ourselves and them. However, we cannot wait for this to happen or despair if it does not happen. The struggle we are engaged in is international. We well know what happens in Vietnam affects our struggle here, and what we do affects the struggle of the Vietnamese people. This is even more apparent when we look at ourselves not as African Americans of the United States, but as African Americans of the Americas. At the present moment, the power struggle has sown the seeds of hate and discord between African Americans and Spanish speaking people in the large cities where they live. In the state of California, Mexican Americans and Spanish speaking people comprise almost 50% of the population. Yet the two view each other with suspicion and sometimes outright hostility. We recognize this as the old trick of divide and conquer, and we are working to see that it does not succeed this time. Last week, Puerto Ricans and blacks took to the streets together in New York City to fight against the police, which demonstrates success in that area. Our destiny cannot be separated from the destiny of the Spanish speaking people in the United States and of the Americas. Our victory will not be achieved unless they celebrate the liberation side by side with us. For it is not the struggle, for it is not their struggle, but our struggle. We have already pledged ourselves to do what we are asked to aid the struggle for the independence of Puerto Rico, to free it from domination by the United States business and military interests. And we look upon Cuba as a shining example of hope in our hemisphere. We do not view our struggle as being contained within the boundaries of the United States as they are defined by present day maps. Excuse me. Instead, we look to the day when a true United States of America will extend from Tierra del Fuego to Alaska, when those formerly oppressed will stand together, a liberated people. Our people are a colony within the United States. You are colonies outside the United States. It is more than a figure of speech to say that the black communities in America are the victims of white imperialism and colonial exploitation. This is in this is in practical economic and political terms true. There are over 30 million of us in the United States. For the most part, we live in the sharply defined areas in the rural black belt areas in shanty towns of the South, and more in the slums of the northern and western industrial cities. It is estimated that in another 5 to 10 years, two-thirds of our 30 million will be in the ghettos, in the hearts of these cities. Joining us are hundreds and hundreds of Puerto Rican, Mexican Americans, and American Indian populations. The American city is, in essence, populated by people of the third world, while the white middle class flee the cities to the suburbs. In these cities, we do not control our resources. We do not control the land, the houses, or the stores. These are owned by whites who live outside the community. These are very real colonies, as their capital and cheap labor are exploited by those who live outside the cities. Excuse me. White power makes the law and enforces those laws with guns and nightsticks in the hands of white racist policemen and black mercenaries. The capitalist system gave birth to these black enclaves and formally articulated the terms of their colonial independent status as we done. For example, by the apartheid government of Tanzania, South Africa, which the US keeps alive by its support. The struggle for black power in this country is the struggle to free these colonies from external domination. But we do not seek to create communities where, in place of white rulers, black rulers control the lives of black masses and where black money goes into the pockets of a few blacks. We want to see it go into the communal pocket. The society, the society we seek to build among Black people is not an impressive capitalist society. For capitalism, by its very true nature, cannot create structures free from exploitation. We are fighting for the redistribution of wealth and for the end of private property inside the United States. The question is that may be asked is how does the struggle to free these internal colonies relate to your struggle to destroy imperialism? We realistically survey our numbers and know that it is not possible for Black people to take over the entire country militarily and hold large areas of land. In a highly industrialized nation, the struggle is different. The heart of the production and the heart of the commercial trade is in the cities. We are in the cities. With our rebellions, we have become a disruptive force in the flow of services, goods, and capital. Shit, y'all all right over there? Okay. Since 1966, the cry of the rebellions have been Black Power. In this cry, there was an ideology implied which the masses understood instinctively. It is because we are powerless that we are oppressed, and it is only with power that we can make the decisions governing our lives and our communities. Those who have power have everything. Those who are without power have nothing. Without power, we have to beg for what is rightfully ours. With power, we will take our birthright because it is with power that our birthright was taken from us. Black power is more than a slogan. It is the way of looking at our problems in the beginning of a solution to them. It attacks racism and exploitation, the horns of the bull that seeks to gore us. The United States is a racist country. From its very beginning, it has built itself upon the subjugation of colored people. The Europeans who settled the United States systematically stole the land and destroyed the native population. The Indians, forcing them eventually onto reservations where they live today, a mere 0.3% of the total population. At the same time, the United States was waging genocide against the Indians. It was raping the African American continent of its natives and bringing them to the Americas to work as slaves. To enslave another human being, one needs justification. In, in the United States has always found this justification in proclaiming the superiority of whites and the inferiority of non-whites. We are called niggers. Spanish speaking people are called spics. The Chinese chinks, the Vietnamese gooks. By dehumanizing us and all others of color, it is therefore becomes just in the mind of white men that we should be enslaved, exploited, and oppressed. However, it becomes easier to keep a man a slave when he himself can be convinced that he is inferior. How much easier is it to keep a man in chains by making him believe his own inferiority? As long as he does, he will keep himself in chains. As long as a slave allows himself to be defined as a slave by the master, he will be a slave, even if the master dies. This technique has been successfully practiced not only against us, but wherever people have been enslaved, oppressed, and exploited. We can see it happening today in the schools of large U.S. cities where Puerto Rican and Mexican children are not allowed to speak Spanish and are taught nothing of their country and their history. It is apparent in many African countries where one is not considered educated unless he has studied in French and speaks French. Black Power attacks this brainwashing by saying, we will define ourselves. We will no longer accept the white man's definition of ourselves as ugly, ignorant, and uncultured. We will recognize our own beauty and our own culture, and we will no longer be ashamed of ourselves. For our people ashamed of itself cannot be free. Because our color has been used as a weapon to oppress us, we must use our color as a weapon of liberation. This is the same as other people using their nationality as a weapon for their liberation. This coming together around our race was an inevitable part of our struggle. We recognize, however, that this is not the totality, only the necessary beginning. Black power recognizes that while we are made to feel inferior, this is only so that we may be more easily exploited. Even if we destroy racism, we will not necessarily destroy exploitation. Thus, we must constantly launch a two-pronged attack. We must constantly keep our eyes on both of the bull's horns. Color and culture were and are key in our oppression. Therefore, our analysis of history and our economic analysis are rooted in these concepts. Our historical analysis, for example, views the United States as being conceived in racism. Although the first settlers themselves were escaping from oppression, and although their armed uprising against their mother country was around the aggravations of colonialism, taxation without representation, etc., the white European settlers could not extend their lofty theories of democracy to the Indian, whom they systematically exterminated as they expanded into the interior of the country. Indeed, in that same time where the settlers set up their model of government based on the theory of representation democracy, in the same time, the first slaves were brought from Africa. In our economic analysis, our interpretation of Marx comes not only from his writings, but from how we see capitalism's relationship to people of color. The labor movement in the United States, while in the beginning containing some great leaders in the struggle against the absolute control of the economy by the industrial lords, essentially fought only for more money. Those few who had the vision of extending the fight for workers' control of production never succeeded in transmitting their entire vision to the rank and file. This labor found itself asking the industrial lords not to give up their control, but merely to pass out a few more of the fruits of this control. Unlike us, they do not raise questions of redistributing the wealth inside the US. Thereby, did the United States anticipate the prophecy of Marx and avoid the inevitable class struggle within the country by expanding into the third world and exploring the resources and slave labor of people of color? U.S. capitalists never cut down on the domestic profits to share with the workers. Instead, they expanded internationally. Oh, excuse me. They expanded internally and through the bones of the profits to the American working class. The American working class enjoys the fruits of the labors of the third world workers. The proletariat has become the third world. The bourgeoisie is white Western society. The true potential revolutionaries in this country are the black youths of the ghettos. Those who have developed the insurgents in the cities are African American and Latin communities where past rebellions have taught important lessons in dealing with the government's armed reaction to our uprisings. These rebellions should not be taken lightly. In the past 3 years, there have been over 100 uprisings in the internal colonies of the United States. These are no doubt reported as you, reported to you as minor disturbances initiated by a few malcontents. These are major rebellions with numbers of participants who are developing a consciousness of resistance. It is with increasing concern that we see the United States will be any means necessary attempt to prevent the liberation struggle sweeping across the third world. But in particular, we know that the United States fears most the liberation struggle on this continent. In order to secure itself geographically, the United States must have Latin America both economically, politically, and culturally. It will not do for the Anglos to be isolated on the continent of hostiles. Excuse me. It will not do for the Anglos to be isolated on the continent of hostiles. I read it right. Black power not only addresses itself to exploitation, but to problems of cultural integrity. Wherever imperialism has gone, she has imposed her culture by force on others, on other peoples, forcing them to adopt her language and way of life. When African slaves were brought to this country, the Anglos saw it, saw that he took away the language of the African. He broke one of the bonds which kept them united and struggling. Africans were forbidden to speak to each other in their own language. If they were found doing so, they were savagely beaten into silence. Western imperialism has always understood the importance of language to people's cultural consciousness and integrity. When it moved into the third world, it has moved to impose its own language. In Puerto Rico, where Yankee cultural imposition is at its height, English is taught in all high schools for 3 years, while Spanish is taught for 2 years. Anglo society learned other valuable lessons from the enslavement of Africans in this country. When you separate a man's family, as was done to the slaves, you again weaken his resistance. But carry the separation further, take a few of the weaker slaves and then treat them as house pets. The lighter skinned slaves, offspring of the master's rape of the African woman, was preferred. Give him the crumbs of the master's table and cast off his clothing, and soon he will fear to lose these small comforts. Then use his fears by getting him to report on the activities of the bad slaves. Report the impending revolts and uprisings. Distrust and dissent is created among the Africans, and thus they will fight amongst themselves instead of uniting to fight the oppressors. Today's descendants of African slaves brought to America has been separated from their cultural and national roots, excuse me. Black children are not taught of the glory of African civilization in the history of mankind. They are instead taught about Africa, the dark continent inhabited by man-eating savages. They are not taught of thousands of black martyrs who died resisting the white slave masters. They are not taught of the numerous uprisings and revolts where hundreds of brave Africans refused to submit to slavery. Instead, the history books the history books read of happy slaves singing in their fields, content with their new lives. The few slaves who did resist are called troublemakers, malcontents, crazy. Black children in North America grow up aspiring only to enter white society, not only because white society eats better, is housed better, and clothed better, and can make a better living, but because they have been bombarded by the white controlled communications media and educated by black teachers with white minds, are petty Yankees. That white is better. White is beautiful. Anglo features, manner of speech, aspirations are to be acquired if one is to be successful, even within the black community. The white man hardly needs to police his colonies within this country, for he has plundered the cultures and enslaved the minds of the people of color until their resistance is paralyzed by self-hate. An important fight in the third world, therefore, is the fight for cultural integrity. Wherever Western society has gone, as Franz Fanon tells us, she has imposed through force her culture. Through force and bribery, the giving of a few crumbs to a few petty Yankees, the people of a conquered country begin to realize that Western culture is better than their own. The, the young people begin to put aside the richness of their native culture to take on the tinsel of Western culture. They become ashamed of their roots and inevitably can only be trapped in the life of self-hate and private pursuit for self-gain. Thus, does the West entrap whole peoples with little resistance? One of our major battles is to root out corrupt Western values, and our resistance cannot prevail unless our cultural integrity is restored and maintained. We are working now to increase the consciousness of African Americans so it will extend internationally. Why am I saying that? Internally. I'm saying it internationally. Oh my God. The United States fears this more than anything else, not only because such a consciousness would destroy within black communities the minority complex so carefully cultivated by the Anglos, but because it knows that if the black man realizes that the counterinsurgency efforts of this country are directed against his brother, he will not go. He cannot go. Then it will become crystal clear to the world that the imperialist wars are racist wars. During the past year, instituted a black resistance to the draft movement, not only because we are against black men fighting their brothers in Vietnam, but also because we are certain that the next Vietnam will be on this continent, perhaps Bolivia, where there are now special forces advisors, perhaps Guatemala, Brazil, Peru, or the Dominican Republic. The African American has tried for the past 400 years to peacefully exist inside the country. It has been to no avail. Our history demonstrates that the reward for trying to peacefully coexist has been physical and psychologically murder of our peoples. We have been lynched. Our houses have been bombed. Our churches burned. We are now being shot down in the streets like dogs by racist policemen, and we can no longer accept this oppression without retribution. We must join those who are for armed struggle around the world. We understand that we expand our resistance and internalize the consciousness of our people as our martyr brother Malcolm X taught us. Retaliation from the government will come to us as it did to him. As the resistance struggle escalates, we are well aware of the reality of Che Guevara's words that the struggle will not be a mere street fight, what will be long and harsh. In the end, our common brotherhood sustains us all as we struggle for our liberation by any means necessary. But Black power means that we see ourselves as part of the third world. that we see our struggle as closely related to liberation struggles around the world. We must hook up with these struggles. We must, for example, ask ourselves, when Black people in Africa began to storm Johannesburg, when Latin Americans revolt, what would be our role? What would be the role of the United States and that of African Americans? It seems inevitable that this nation will move to protect its financial interests in South Africa and Latin America, which means protecting white rule in these countries. Black people in the United States then have the responsibility to oppose, at least to neutralize that effort by the United States. This is but one example of many such situations which have already arisen around the world, with more to come. There is only one place for Black Americans in these struggles, and that is on the side of the third world. Franz Fanon in The Wretched of the Earth puts forth clearly the reason for this in relationship of the concept of a new force in the new world. Let us decide not to imitate Europe. Let us try to create the whole man whom Europe has incapable of bringing to triumphant birth. 2 centuries ago, a former European colony decided to catch up with Europe. It succeeded so well that the United States of America became a monster in which the taints, the sickness, and the inhumanity of Europe have grown to appalling dimensions. The third world today faces Europe like a colossal mass whose aim should be to try to resolve the problems to which Europe has not been able to find answers. It is a question of the third world starting a new history of man, a history which will have regard to the sometimes prodigious thesis which Europe has put forward, which will also not forget Europe's crimes, of which the most horrible was committed in the heart of man, and consisted of the pathological tearing apart of its functions and the crumbling away of its unity. No, there is no question of a return to nature. It is simply a very concrete question of not dragging men toward mutilation, of not imposing upon the brain rhythms which very quickly obliterate it and wreck it. The pretext of catching up was not be used to push man around, to tear him away from himself or from his privacy, to break and kill him. No, we do not want to catch up with anyone. What we want to do is go forward all the time, night and day, in the company of man, in the company of all man. Black Power. Yeah, that was Black Power in the Third World by Stokely Carmichael, uh, addressed in Havana, Cuba, August 1967. You know, man, that boy Stokely was a bad boy, man. You know, his articulation, capitalism, colonism, colonialism, uh, imperialism, and all that shit, bro. His articulation of that shit, man, coming from the hood, the urban area, it was a deep thing to where it's so deep to where it's still hit today. It still speaks volumes. I'm talking about nigga in his grave right now is speaking. He's speaking. I'm talking about to the people. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, teaching peace, man, to the ancestor, man. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. I'll be right back at y'all here in a minute.